Hey, Kyle here from Immersed Ecology, and I'm in an amazing rainforest garden today, the UBC Botanical Gardens in Vancouver, Canada. And this garden is up on the cliffs on the west side of Vancouver in the Pacific Spirit Rainforest, and overlooks the Georgia Strait, which goes out into the Pacific Ocean, and you can see the mountains of Vancouver Island in the distance. So I can give you guys a tour of this amazing garden, see some of the views up on the cliffs of the ocean, as well as some of the amazing native trees here, these giant Douglas firs, western red cedar, and western hemlocks, and then see some of the native plants that are growing in the forest here, as well as plants in the botanical gardens from all over the world. A lot from Asia, some from the Mediterranean of Europe as well, because this area is a sub-Mediterranean zone, so a lot of the plants and trees that grow in the Mediterranean regions of the world will grow pretty well here. Not all of them, but a lot of the ones, particularly from the Mediterranean, from Turkey all the way to Portugal, a lot will grow here. So it gets a little more rain here than the Mediterranean, maybe a lot more rain, depending on who you ask. But it's an amazing ecosystem, amazing rainforest. Some of the biggest trees in the world are in this area, and some of the most incredible biodiversity on the West Coast. So let's explore this garden.
A peaceful pool for reflection in the Asian garden. Look at this trail of wonder. Beautiful, windy trail. Popular spot with the pollinators. Bees everywhere, buzzing around. A nice little trail over here into the forest. The peaceful flow of a plant in the breeze. A wonderful view up on the cliffs here in the Pacific Spirit Rainforest, just outside the UBC Botanical Gardens. We're looking toward the Fraser River Delta in Richmond. You can see Orcas Island, one of the highest peaks in the distance in the United States. And you're looking toward like Galliano and Salt Spring and Vancouver Island in the distance. And you see the logging booms down below. And then you see off in the distance Vancouver Island on the horizon there. Here we have two lovebirds. Two cedar trees joined in union. You see here growing in these huge trees is English ivy. Grows up the trees, and if not removed, eventually can kill the tree. And here's the green heart tree walk. Here is the start of the Green Heart Tree Walk. A little wobbly, bit of a challenge. Whoa! Very cool. And just over the edge, that's what the forest ferns look like from above. And here's the view from the top. Nice ferns down below in the forest. A beautiful spot. Nice view of the trail. Here's one of the most common trees on the British Columbian coast, the western hemlock. Another interesting tree with these giant seeds. I'm gonna have to figure out what it is. Here we got a giant Sitka spruce. Don't see this tree too much around here. They can grow to be huge monsters. Here we have two western red cedars. You can walk between. Western red cedar in the native culture is called the tree of life. So it really gave life to their culture and their tribes because it can be used for so many different things. So there's a natural preserve in the wood that stops fungi from eating it and prevents the decay of the wood. So it's used for the most important totem poles. It's also used for ocean-going canoes. It's used for textiles, for hats, for the longhouses often, for all kinds of tools and utensils, for cooking. And the cedar produces a natural aroma, which is actually really good for your health to inhale it, because you actually get the fungal properties of resistance to the bad fungi that you don't want. And it can be a very healing medicine. It was used throughout the coastal First Nations cultures here as a healing medicine. Here we have a large western hemlock tree. You have these small needles, distinguish it from the Douglas fir and the western red cedar. You often see a lot of western hemlocks in areas that have been logged because they're not considered a prized wood on markets. So unlike the western red cedar and Douglas fir, they get left behind more. And hemlock is a poison. It can kill you, although the tree can be used in all kinds of different ways by herbalists that understand its medicine. And now from a walk in the woods to the North Garden, through a Japanese-style Shinto-like gate, and then into a tunnel. So this here is a representation of how big western red cedars can grow in circumference and size. And here's a smaller one over here. Very interesting flower arrangement. Here's a panoramic view of the North Garden. The rainforest trees in the background. And species from all over the world. Look at these dancing purpley blue flowers. And then up here, we have the arbutus tree. The red bark peels. Spectacular tree, sacred to the native people. They would harvest the bark and the medicines from the tree. They would never cut these trees down because it's not very many of them, and they're very special. So very few of them actually remain today. They're an endangered species. They grow in the most beautiful places. Here's an Australian eucalyptus tree. They like dry climates, but they grow in a wet climate like the rainforest here. 95% of the world's eucalyptus trees are found only in Australia. Nephophila triangularis. Beautiful orange flowers and these tube-like shoots. Very interesting flowers. Another spectacular flower arrangement here. Beautiful white flowers that almost glow in the sun. Brilliant shade of red. Hi. Check us out. Very interesting water feature. A hypanthium. I believe it's from ancient Greece. The Greeks opened a lot of amphitheaters and developed a lot of technology for projecting sound by the right design of the architecture. Circular design like this. You stand in the middle there, and your voice is magnified, amplified to the whole audience, naturally. Looks like a giant cush ball. Really interesting. Look at these giants. Torch lilies. Majestic plants. Orange flowers. Reminds me of the Lorax. You wouldn't have a botanical garden without the succulents. Here in an interesting greenhouse setup. Prickly. Beautiful flower of life pattern. Almost look like they're looking at you. Very interesting here. Beautiful colors. Here we have the Physic Garden, and a garden about the development of Western medicine from European herbalism. So a lot of the ancient treatises on herbal medicine and plants that can heal were lost in the Dark Ages, and they were preserved by Arab monks and the Moors in Iberia. And then the 13th century European monks rediscovered them and brought this back into the culture. And what was developed was this doctrine of signatures, an ancient belief that plants are marked with a divine sign indicating their purpose. So in European herbalism, you'll often see the names of the plants, the medicinal plants, end in wort. So the first part of the word is the part of your body that will heal. And the second part they put in wort as a sacred healing divine plant. And they believed, and still do to this day, herbalists follow this doctrine of signatures. Paracelsus, this wizard, herbalist, scientist, doctor, basically developed this. If you ever want to go down the rabbit hole, learn about the doctrine of signatures and his life. One of the most influential people probably ever lived, in terms of plant medicine at least. Here we have chamomile. Something that relaxes the nerves, very popular in tea. Onis spinosa, colorful flowers. And this garden is hedged in by yew trees, provide a nice shelter. Beautiful sundial here at the 49th latitude. We only count the sunny hours. Here we have the food garden. Our food crops from all over the world. And there's a lot of information here about pollinators. Bees and other pollinators are estimated to provide almost $100 billion of services that increase yields of crops that we eat, and yet they're down 80% all over the world. So climate change and biodiversity loss can get very expensive over time. Here's a bee bonanza. Find that pollen. The male worker bees pollinating the female flowers. And among certain bees, particularly honeybees, they're actually matriarchal. Queen bee lives at the center of the hive and manages the giant bee hierarchy of workers, pollinators. Amazing creatures. We know so little about them, and we're so dependent on them. Ever popular sunflower. So sunflowers actually follow the sun in its orbit and will often close up at night. So they're highly sensitive to light and highly beautiful to the human eye. Here we have dawn redwoods, one of the most rare trees in the world. Used to be all across the northern hemisphere. Now they're mostly known in North America, other parts of the northern hemisphere as fossils. They've been around for 100 million years. Today they're only found in China, in the wild. Only about 6,000 of these trees in the world. And Europeans actually thought they were extinct until they were found in China. And then seeds were distributed. And now they're grown in botanical gardens in over 50 countries. They provide amazing shade for wetlands like this. Here we have Gary Oak Meadows up on the hill here. They don't grow on the mainland typically. Indigenous, the rain shadow on Vancouver Island, Victoria, up past Nanaimo. Beautiful trees. Create these beautiful meadows up on hills overlooking the ocean. And there's a Carolinian forest garden here. The Carolinian forest is in eastern North America, stretching from the Carolinas up to southern Ontario. And this is one of the most common species that grows in almost any soil conditions. Staghorn sumac. And these lovely flowers on them can produce dye. And from sumac this time of year in the summer, you can produce sumac lemonade, which is very refreshing in the summer. It's used by indigenous peoples to cool off during summer heat waves. Here we have a giant Douglas fir, the tallest trees in British Columbia. Although the western red cedar usually are larger in circumference and grow a little bit longer too. These ones are majestic giants. Here's a moss-covered magnolia tree. So magnolia trees are interesting in that they appear in the fossil record millions of years before pollinators that would pollinate their huge, beautiful, colorful flowers. So before bees and butterflies and hummingbirds, which are pollinators that are unique to the Americas. So very ancient trees that had different kinds of pollinators that maybe don't even exist anymore. UBC seems to have a really good sustainability program. Good recycling, composting, different garbage sorting containers around campus, and definitely the ecological consciousness of people living in a rainforest is much higher than many other places. So pretty amazing to live in this magical forest and learn, surrounded by all these amazing plants, trees, and fungi. Beautiful white flowers. Amazing. Species of grape that you see a lot in the rainforest in the Pacific Northwest. This is Oregon grape. Beautiful grapes, beautiful plant. You see growing on the ground around large trees. Here we have the Manchurian maple from North Korea, one of the hardiest maples in the world. It's an amazing collection of maple trees here at the UBC Botanical Garden. Really interesting plant. Trees are actually plants. Very large biodiverse plants that are almost ecosystems on themselves. Here's a liana climbing vine. Roots that grow up to the sky.
You can see it from here. Like it only makes partway up the tree.
And here's where I'm gonna have my lunch. The blackberry bushes. Amazingly delicious fruit. And it's in perfect season right now. Ripe and bountiful.